So what we're going to talk to you about tonight is these visions for 2025. So we've talked about, so when we got the task force going in 2020, we said, let's try and improve project delivery tenfold. That's a massive ambition, but it's a really, really low benchmark. So the data from Oxford University from 12,000 around the world said the probability, spin it around, right? If I shake your hand today and I said, I'm going to build a bridge for you, right? I'm going to do that for a certain price, a certain time, a certain return on investment. Right? What's the probability that business case true? I shake your hand today and say, I'm going to do all that for you. The probability 50%, do you think? I shake your hand today and say, I'm going to. Yes. People know the answer because they've been taught them shouting out. Anybody?
50%.
What, 50%?
60.
So 60%, 20%, 1%, 50%. It is 4.5%. So 1 in 200 projects. If I shook your hand on a deal today, there's a 1 in 200 chance of me delivering it. Shocking. That is truly shocking. What we're trying to do through the task force is to drive it up to 1 in 20. Now, it's still shocking, but it's less shocking than 1 in 200. So that's what we're trying to do, basically. So through these visions, this is going to get into this future. So by reimagining this, by reimagining the way we deliver projects, we want to unlock that tenfold. One organisation is not going to do it. We're all pulled together, thousands of people together, we can do it. We are doing it. So, tonight we're going to talk to you about the vision which we've got to try and achieve this. We're going to talk about the roadmap. So this is not just pie in the sky stuff. We are getting some plans and you can help us shape those. And some of the challenges which will lead to that roadmap, we can talk through those. So we can sort of describe some of these solutions. So some of the guys in the task force tonight are going to talk about those. So we can talk about the industry applications of Project Data Analytics. This is working at the moment. And we'd like to get you involved as well, right? It's really important to be part of this. Not me, it's not on the task force. It needs thousands of people to do this. We need an engine of change. And that's what we're creating. So why are we doing it? So this tenfold improvement. It's going to be realised by this set of work streams. So these work streams you're going to hear about tonight is next generation PMO. So we're trying to really reinvent what PMO is all about. Work breakdown structure automation. So that's going to be James going to talk about that tonight. We're going to talk about human performance, benefits management and risk. There's going to be more and more work streams. So if you imagine these functions in project delivery, it's going to happen. Talking to a major client at the moment who's really struggling for project people, really struggling. Saudi at the moment. Pickle. Saudi earns money and will settle down. So they're struggling for people, they're struggling for churn, struggling for skilled people, whatever. So we're saying to them, why don't we reinvent project controls? Mainly a reporting function. That reporting function tells you what happened about 3 months ago, and it's not changing your trajectory. Let's totally reinvent it. That's what we're going to do. Yeah, so let's reinvent it.
Yeah.
In crisis, right? Because we're in a bit of a crisis now. There's the war on, there's sort of post-COVID, there's inflation going rampant, etc. Perfect storm. That storm, biggest disruptions. Timing is perfect. We've got government who's listening to us. Right? Cool. So, what we're trying to do is create these visions, right? So these visions for 2025 we've talked about. We'll then transform those into a roadmap. That will say these are the stepping stones to get us to that vision. And then we've got the challenges, and those challenges go into hackathons. It might be apprenticeship projects, you might get part of it off yourself and go and tackle it, whatever. And then create the solutions. Those solutions then get applied somewhere. And when they're applied, there's a business benefit that goes with it. It's a case study. You then go and push out to the community and say, look, this is where the community is making a difference. We're struggling to evidence that, you know. We said, oh, this is all fantastic, we're going to see the. We need evidence. If we've got evidence, we'll get loads of money attracted to it and we'll go faster and faster and faster. So that's what we're trying to do. So if I could pass over now to James. James is going to take you through the work right now, structure automation. So James Laird, big round of applause.
So I'm James Gleeds. Great to be here tonight. So what I want to do tonight is just give you a really strange. Anyone tell me what that is the picture of? Okay, could be, actually, I'm glad you said that. I'll give you a clue. What breakdown structure? Okay, it's what breakdown structure taken from crossfire. Now, Martin was mentioning earlier about things and data, shared some data programming. That data is submitted. So what I did, a bit of a data scientist, in code to actually try and plot graphically breakdown structure. That is exactly what we've got here. Thousands of nodes of data. But it's a really interesting example, I think, of project data science crosses over with real life. You mentioned almost something biological here. Now, in biology, you learn about taxonomies, you classify them. Guess what? We've got the same thing going on with projects. So, as Martin was saying, you know, 1 in 200 success, relying on experts trying that were somehow there. But what I think we've got is a real opportunity to learn good questions. So if you were to come up closer to the screen, you could probably start to see some pattern, commonality. There's projects in the Crossfire program. It's a form of storytelling. You probably have people talking about projects being kind of storytelling activity. You're trying to persuade your stakeholders, I know how this story is. So what we want to do is to take a real forensic kind of surgical look. You know, what is the right way? What is it really telling us? How similar? How different? So looking at this, you can see, well, they kind of sort of got the same. Really actually unpair, go in, cover, in Crossfire, the major program, project within, structure slightly different. But what we want to do is see how it goes. Right? And see why each of those projects is slightly, crucially, why they are also similar. Guess what? If you can do that, you start to really get under the skin of that. So we want to put forward, in fact, we are going to put forward a challenge. The challenge around taking this kind of data, and you develop a model. Then it gets even better because what's there are tools. So imagine if we could then develop the model based on cross pattern, generate structure. Really cool. Using accelerated code, demonstrated learning from the past. Critically, you learn from that field, not that. Okay? You're smart guys, I know you know what that means. That implies we're going to build structures that are actually much more robust, believable. And of course, there's loads of cool techniques that can be used: parametric, expert, machine learning, AI. You know, there's loads of really smart people that get their energy put there, lift our game. But then what we want to do is to demonstrate that capability. And as you said earlier, Martin, it's demonstrating every, challenges, outputs, and potentially to kind of use some of these techniques, such as data traffic. Guys, the limit. Thank you.
So if I could build on that as well. So James has done a brilliant job, and James has been a crusader on this. If I could build on that, right? Just imagine. So the oil and gas sector has got nothing to do with this. It doesn't build very well. But procurement, the same problems we have in procurement, same problems in risk management, the same problems in technical queries, the same problems in value engineering, right? Might not be exactly the same. People say to me, well, Martin, every project's different, so this doesn't work. Data science doesn't work for every project. The human being is different. Now, but we still do data analytics on cancer and stuff like that. Why don't we do it on projects? So we can create, based around your condition on it, so you can take the PID for a project, so the project initiation document, stick it in, read it, spit out a work breakdown structure based around the type of the project. Now, this is not just saying, let's just take Crossrail, take another Crossrail, right? It's easy. You just go and take all the nodes and go and say, replicate and copy, right? See? This is about making it really specific to the objectives, feeding the objectives in, and then automatically creating it. I'm not saying that's a straitjacket, I'm saying that's a handrail. Yeah? If you've got a handrail, it becomes the commonality between projects. If you've got that as part of the data trust, productivity data, for instance, there is no handrail. Lots of people are measuring productivity in loads of different ways. It becomes a handrail because it's the work packages that starts to drive that commonality. So that gives us a reference point to go and reference back to for conversation events, logistics, cost plan, stuff. The reference point that joins everything together. Back to data trust, thing that enables us to scale, and get the insights. So this is the reference point, incredibly important piece of work. A big thanks to James for making it.
Amazing that you're using the word, because that's a belief that just by PMI that project is a one-time endeavor. That's by definition. Yes, so there's no commonality. I mean, we've been trained to think that way, and that's why it's so hard to think.
Let's read back.
After we
So, Ed's up next. So James, he freely gives up his time to the task force. Right? All the task force do. They only the time up to about 8 hours a month-ish, something like that. If you want to be part of the task force, then let me know. Right? So if you want to be part of some of these visions and shape of these visions, then let me know. Put you in. If you volunteer, you've got to commit. Some people volunteered and sort of coming back because this stuff. You've got to commit to it. Want to change the world, just don't do it by turning up every now and again. We've got to commit to it. So these guys you see in front of you tonight are freely giving up their time to change the planet. And it's thank you, James, thank you, Ed. Next up is Ed. So Ed's going to walk you through PMO.
Thank you. Right, so I've been working in the IT sector now for 25 years, and I typically turn up and help recover that they've gone quite badly wrong. And when I look at PMO, I tend to find, especially from a data perspective, I'm going in and I'm telling people the same sort of thing time. And I don't really want to keep doing that. Yeah? And I see Project Data Analytics as a way forward of going, right, you go and do all that stuff, yeah? You won't have to pay me to do all that. Here's how we're going to do it. This is the future. And by doing that, what I can then do is come in and do the really interesting stuff, which is tell you where the projects are really going wrong. You've got all of this stuff in the first place, helps inform that. Now, from a PMO perspective, what we do is generally we go away, we learn a lot of lessons. Yeah, we typically, what I tend to find in most clients is they very diligent, capture them all, they file them away, and that's where they lay. They never come out again. We can try and change that behaviour, but that behaviour has now been going on for. So let's try and do it a different way. So instead, let's take all the data, as Martin was saying, let's learn the lessons by putting that through machine learning. By doing that, then every time you go to do something that's in the project, you just ask the model. By asking the model, you know what are black swans asked. Therefore, what are the key risks? And what are the things that you should be paying attention to when you're putting together the project plan in the first place? Data capture and analysis from project control documentation. So around about 20 years ago, I used to have about 27 project reviews on a monthly basis. And I'd spend much half day to a day going, right, send me your resource model, send me your risks, your schedule as well. And then I'd get all of this, and then I'd be doing it, trying to make sure it all aligns. Now what I actually do is I say, right, okay, I've got all of that information there. Now, all we need to do is set up the data pipeline so I can pull that information in and I can automatically display it. And I've done this with some major blue chip companies in the past. Gone in there and I've worked directly for and put in place data capture, made sure that we've got it going into a lovely SPR database. What it's actually doing is pushing stuff out. When it starts to push that stuff out, that stuff is not reporting on high, which we see an awful lot of management perspective, and again, that's it. But actually, what we start to see is, right, so what is going to happen in the future? Because we start to trend the information. By trending that information, you start to see when projects are going to go offline. And then you can start to intervene at an early stage. That means that it's actually fix it because you found the problem. And you see a lot of this in another good example of all of this is where I go in and I look at dependency management. Management is actually one of the biggest risks from a project, IT project perspective. It's one of those things that outliers. Now, what we can do is by tracking dependencies and tracking those electronically, we can start to see is as soon as any of those start to move, we can start to simulate the impact. Now, we haven't quite got there. We can tell where one's got to do. Yeah? Haven't managed to do it yet is get to the point of, right, this has moved. And so you can then see the whole flow through the entire schedule, even for the small. Now, that would be absolutely fantastic if we could get there in the future. And I believe that we can. Therefore, the real-time dashboards, that's key for all of us to be able to understand, not only as people, but even as execs. So execs can start to really understand their portfolio. Gartner, one of their biggest problems that they see out there at the moment is that you've got the CEO, you've got the C-suite board, they're all sat there, they're making these lovely strategies, then they come to look at the execution, they just can't see what's happening in execution. And so what Gartner are doing is, okay, let's get some data and let's see how we can get the data analytics down here and feed it back up. So we've got the link between business strategy and portfolio execution. And the hindsight, so that's the hindsight moving to foresight I was referring to earlier. And then what we always need are these project data analytics people. And project data analytics people are really important because the PMO of the future don't want, think of nothing more boring than trying to chase around to get a schedule of data. If we can make that all electronic, and if we can make it such that it's better user, we can get a huge amount of people better interact with all of that stuff. Therefore, we can get the data input, not paying somebody to do what is fairly boring job most of the time, trying to get people to respond to either an email or pick up the phone, and before days of COVID actually coming in against their desk until they gave you an answer. I've been there a few times. So, final point on all of this is critical resources, and there's huge amounts out there that are supposed to be managed, all of which, everybody buys them and thinks that they're going to. They do to a certain extent, but at the end of the day, my focus has always been, let's work on the. So let's work on. If you optimise the critical resource, so if we can get that to work, then we can get a real next generation. So why do we do all of this? Well, we do all of this because we want to do the report. Clear that at the end of the day, what's being reported to us is accurate. And so another one of the things that I've always said is, not only do we want the next generation vision perspective to be able to understand the performance, we also want to be able to understand the quality of the. So, to give you an example there, if I go in and I look at a risk log, and I know that it hasn't been updated for a while, then we've got a bit of a data perspective. If you've just got you on static with that there that's telling you what the is, what your performance is saying, well, you've got no perspective. And you haven't. That's because you haven't updated your log. And so with all of this PMO vision, then what we've got to do is we've got to look at the data quality that we're into the machine and what that's telling us. And so how are we going to make some of this stuff happen? So industry applications. So these are some of the challenges that we're going to face into from the hack perspective in the future. And this is all around project performance. So can I believe it? So this is talking to the automated quality assurance of schedules, raids, resource models, cost models, because that then validates the confidence that we should have in the being reported. The smart knowledge. So PM prompted from an automated PMO. So think of, and I know that a lot of people in the room don't quite have my age characteristics. So what's this thing called Clippy? Microsoft used to pop up, and they seem to be trying to bring it back again, because I saw some things popping up on my screen only today, which basically said, oh, you're doing this. Have you considered this template? Well, wouldn't it be nice if we had talking about risk management, just started it. So here's your risk management template. So from a PMO perspective, you haven't got a PMO that's going, oh, can you just, this is the template that you should be using. Here's the processes. What about Clippy saying, hey, here you go, the link to where all the information is that you need that. Here's the template for that. And you're not spending your time searching. Removing the monotony of project updates. I think I put that earlier. Yeah. And optimizing delivery using collaborative insights. So this is all, and this is one that James has set. So this is all about using the project file metadata to understand effort and collaboration. Well, a whole host of data that James has took me through that sits in the background. And so from a SharePoint perspective, you can start to tell a lot more around who's been interacting with various files by the interacting. So by using that data, you start to understand the engagement of the overall team, and likewise the well-being. So who's been up at God knows what hours trying to get some work done? Therefore, we should do that. That's it from me for today. I'm going to hand it off to James, but thank you so much for your time.
So I've actually built it on Ed's bit, right? So at the next hack, we're going to get Lindsay Scott come along with House of PMO Cloud. Then have a round table to talk about next generation PMO. To me, so what do we want to do about pushing some pilots out as well? So we need some data, we need some volunteer organisations to pilot this with. And what's the aspiration like? Where do we want to be by 2025? I think we can push it further than this, a lot further than this. I think this is in reach. I think we can be more ambitious. Right. So that's first thing. And the second thing, so let's talk about IT projects. Now, probably heard about this notion of a black swan. Right? So it's a unpredictable event that's come out of nowhere and it's blown your project. So in terms of black swans and IT project, what do you think the probabilities of getting 98%? Yeah. So, seems to me a black swan, something that just comes out of the blue that you didn't expect, right? So if you didn't expect it, it shouldn't be every single sort of IT project. It should be a rare event, right? It should be a 1% event. Ben Fluvier's work from Oxford University, published it about 2011, 2012, he said 1 in 6 projects is a black swan. Now that's fine. You live in a cave. If you live in a cave, I didn't see that coming. And this is what Project Data Analytics does. It doesn't give you an excuse anymore that I live in a cave. I didn't see that was going to happen. Right? It's not defensible anymore. Yeah? You can't say, oh, I didn't see that, I didn't know that was going to happen, I didn't know that was going to trip me up. This. The data set now means you can stand on the top of the biggest mountain and see everything. No excuse. So the probability of a black swan should no longer be 1 in 6 in IT projects. It should be 1%. No, it shouldn't even be that. It should be 0.1%. That's a God stuff. So we've got to. This is the tweak, folks. This is about completely changing the game. So I'm going to pass over to James now. So James from Gleeds he's been through the apprenticeship as well. So he swallowed the red pill. Right? We've got thinking very, very differently about the world. James is one of the pathfinders on this, and he's so impassioned about it. So a big round of applause for James, please.
Thanks very much, Martin, and thank you for everyone for coming to our offices today. I'm going to talk a little bit about the hackathons and some of the industry applications that come. Martin said I did swallow it. There's no turning back now. Down that road. And as part of the apprenticeship, it meant getting really involved. And the beauty of the hackathon has been to try things out and be creative without any kind of threats or anyone older. And you know what? Being okay to fail sometimes. Some of the hacks, some of the solutions haven't worked. Fine. And to adapt them. What I want to talk about today is these are just a few examples. I don't know how many solutions you've got in the locker room somewhere, probably over 100, but I'm just going to talk about 4. 2 of them are ones I've been involved with, and the other ones are a contractor's one and one which the Environment Agency did. But the important thing for me about this, and I'll play the video as I talk through it in a minute, is not just what we did at the hack, but what we did afterwards, productionised. So there's only so much you can do in the hackathon. 2 days, bear in mind, some of that time taking the brief, some of that time seeing, some of that time getting to know each other. And then some of the time is producing your video, judge it. So in actual fact, 2 days is probably a day of quality time. What are you doing that time? And this is, so one of the examples I wanted to show you was, this will work, is we actually won one of the hacks with it. What we wanted to do was look at a way of tracking material prices, and this is really topical now. And we used web scraping techniques, and this was actually what we submitted for the hack. So we were able to look at 3 key materials, so steel, concrete, and timber, and we linked it to things like the London Metal Exchange and to other price books and places that provided data, and was able to link it using web scraping, so it was updating in real time. And then on the right-hand side, we're able to take that and actually put it into an application so that you could say, well, what does this mean to my project in terms of, well, if the cost of steel has moved £250 a tonne over the last months, what does that mean to my project? So helping you to tell a client what's actually happening, to put it into perspective. Obviously, where we want to go with it is to move it forward, to make predictive analysis, start building up the database. All this web scraping data goes into some SQL data, and you can start predicting where things are going. We also looked at labour rates and all the different trades, all the different regions in the UK, and again linking to some well-known free public access databases on the internet. Difficult able to aggregate it and put it into this kind of a solution. And what happened with this is we won the hackathon itself, and we got
And the guitar.
and a guitar. Yeah, I thought a nice new guitar with the winnings. But that was only half the story. What the really cool thing was what we did afterwards. So we took this solution a little bit and we productionized it. We put it into our intranet, gave it to all the QSs, mainly the QSs for everyone. They loved it. In various ways, they were just to kind of those materials, they were able to use it in bids, demonstrate our opinion. They were able just to, quite proud there was this kind of solution. But that, again, that's not the end of the story with this. We knew this is only the tip of the iceberg. So then it gave us the confidence. I think this is what's the try things out, be innovative, test it out in a small setting, and then we're now confident someone wants. So we're carrying some money, some really scraping experts, and we're going to the next level with this. So more materials, and it's all legal. I know some stuff about scraping. So we've done the due diligence on the legality of it, and then we've also stopped web scraping news items so that we can. The thing at the moment is really important because as a lot of QS and project management, things are changing almost daily. So by doing that, we've got some money into it. So that's like just one example. The next one was another one that Gleeds did. When I say Gleeds, it was a Gleeds challenge that we something that it's available for everyone, the solution. And this again is what we developed at the hackathon. And this was around benchmarking. And we teamed up with BCIS. Does anyone know BCIS? So they're the Building Cost Information Service. They're part or were part of this, which is now being sold. That's the story. But they were the Bible. They were kind of the data trial. They aggregated into data. So we teamed up with them. They gave us some data on student accommodation, the way they treated it, and stuff like that. And actually, what we did in the hackathon was able to use Microsoft Power Suite, a really cool app, linked to their indices via an API, so we could readjust all the costs to time and location in real time. That normally showed them that normally takes more calculations to do. We're able to put some filters into it so we can start actually deciding and filtering our projects to the type of project that we want in terms of things like what kind of foundation does your project want. We get this analysis. So this is all based on Power BI. And again, we're able to come up with trend analysis, and we're able to do this in a, I think what I like to say, a psychologically safe environment. I don't have anyone on the shoulder. If it fails, no big. That's what I love. Could do this stuff. Actually, what came out of it was really cool, and we were able to do the exact same thing. We took this, drove it to our own data, productionized it. Pretty much the same story as the people loved it. We knew there were certain flaws with it, and I suppose what's different about this one, what this led us to, was a realization. Data, the way that we can use data, construction industry. Obviously, it's great for pricing work, factors to price work, with an SMM7 or that stuff goes back to 9. It's great for contractors. It's so good for machines. It doesn't provide any. So what the hack allowed us to do, as well as building the solution, actually allowed us to really think about data, change the way we play. So we've now got a data strategy off the back of this data with this same content. Key for us, and it's kind of obvious when you think about it, every sector had to be slightly different. Every sector, can't collect data for a school the same way for office. Some of it's the same, but it's the context that's different. And this allowed us to do it. And actually, we did add on a machine learning element, which wasn't quite a success hard, but it allowed us to experiment and do a little machine learning. So, two really good examples of how, how we've used the hacker to. That's just two. The other ones, which were not necessarily ones I'm so familiar with, but equally very, very important, there was one around evolving site diaries. So every site has these site diaries. Some of them are electronic. They've probably got one thing in common, which is that people board site, they unless there's an arbitration or a job goes to court, again, which is such a shame because it's got a wealth of information within it. It's actually, if we to model it and use it properly, we could improve productivity and we reduce the risk on projects. I'm not sure if these videos do it justice, but they hopefully show well. I can't get these to work, but it doesn't matter because the concept's exactly the same in terms of it's all about predicting what will happen on our project. So to be able to predict what happens on our project, we need to be able to get this data out of the site diary so that we can mitigate the high-risk days for early intervention. So it's all around using the data so that we can pinpoint based on time. Too much time construction is around a bunch of people sitting in a room about what, which is actually that we shouldn't be doing that. We should know what happened because that's recorded. Spend our time to fix it and how not to do it again and how to deliver. And that goes at delivering the projects with greater confidence and quality. And that's through automation, using these site diaries. Let's set them out as standards, standardized, so we collect them standard way. So we're using the APIs where they're giving companies better still put it into data trust so that the whole industry can get focus of the public. The last example was all around the, I think this was the Environment Agency one, wasn't it? The Environment Agency knew that they had these project constraints. And they knew that they had this turbulence projects. And it was something that they kind of thought like they had to accept, just something that happened. And didn't pay very much attention, and they didn't have any visibility into the turbulence. So if they didn't have any visibility into it, they didn't have. And there was no way to make any kind of data-driven interventions into it. So what the hack solution did for this one was to understand what the pain points were in terms of the lack of visibility, was the source of the turbulence, what was the scale, and also the insights were never getting through to the management team. So this event happened on the project, caused some turbulence. No one found out about it. No one actually got to the cause of it. Obviously, that impacted the ability and there was a lot of wastage in terms of management time and in terms of the people to get to the bottom of it. And that has an impact. This is really cohesiveness and collaboration. So when things are going wrong, then what? Probably all be totally destroyed because you can't put it right. You've got the kind of person who wants to make better. So I think everyone in this room wants to. You need that data to make it. So that was the pain point. And the solution done in the hackathon was an app which allowed staff to submit the constraints, talking about that psychological safety, allowing people to raise their concerns and feel like they have the ability to do so. And then, similar to what we did with the Gleeds ones, in terms of take it from the hack, do a small pilot. I think it was a 6-week pilot or something like that, led by a small team. And in that time, it surfaced 12 issues of the day. that were previously totally opaque. So all of a sudden, straight away, just by producing this app, they were able to put things to the surface that they didn't know about. And then that was able to help people understand how to put it right. So the outcome was the teams recognised they had a voice. People had the ability to tell people what was going on. And to step out of the silence. I suppose the other thing is if there's loads of teams with these constraints happening on their projects and they're trying to find a way of solving it, there's probably a lot of duplication. Let's stop that as well, because everyone will raise their concerns with. So it improved the constraint reporting, it enabled more advanced insights to be pulled. And I think quite an important thing that came out of it, and was talking about, in terms of they thought typically they're on these large impact events that happen. Actually, what they found was by focusing more on the day-to-day stuff, a combination of all that day-to-day stuff that goes wrong is probably greater than one big. So they put their time into that, increased productivity, increased production, and was a critical step in shifting the approach to risk management activity. So, another really good example of taking the hack challenge and turning it into something real. And I think that was the theme of all four of these. And I hope it all, gives you food for thought. What you've seen on the screen with these four are things that were done in 2 days, of actual coding time, led to real substantial change and difference. So, on that note, I'll hand you back to Martin.
So in terms of this one, we've been working with the Environment Agency on it, so we've helped them to productionise some of this. It's surfacing loads of stuff. It's getting the conversation going, getting up to board level now as well. So let's start to understand now. This is not about risk management anymore. Right? These don't feature on the risk register. This is noise. This is what's creating all the turbulence on the project, and this is where a lot of the delays coming from. People talk about, risk, we need to manage this. No, we don't. We need to manage. It's all this noise that's coming out of the system. Visible. Nobody sees it. Just day-to-day stuff. So that brings me very nicely onto this next bit about risk. Right? So, HS2, who's coming on to the next half, they're giving us some challenges. Seeing the data, I think it's going to be data too. But what we're trying to do is a twin track approach, right? So, one is to improve what we've got. So at the moment, you've got all of your risks coming out and there's some quality criteria, right? So a number of black cells, it's not filled in. You're looking at, who's updated it in the past 6 months? So you have some metrics around, some quality metrics. You push it a little bit further, something we did at 6, just to say there's a training data set of about 1,000 risks, we're going to take 300 of them. I'm going to say risk, 10-year-old who's put that one who said the risk is it's going to take, right? So we can start to census the risks and grade them. I can say that's a poor risk, that's a really good one. Right? So it gives you a score like on a password. So you have a green score. So if we do that, we start to finish up some quality metrics. We push it a little bit further and say, right, I want a recommender engine. So I'm just about to do element on HS2. Done it on phase 1, I'm going to do it on phase 2. So what list that I'd like to see? So it's a recommender ending up all. Got 40,000 risks across HS2. That data is just sat there and rotting. Yeah. So let's pull a load of insights out of it so we can polish it, and we keep polishing it and polishing it and polishing it. Right? That's what we'd like to do out the hack. Another one is saying risk management is the human process of guessing what's going to go wrong. Stop it! Stop it! Right. It's not the 1980s, right? We should be stopping guessing. We've got loads of data, loads of it. It should be about variance analytics, right? You saw from the previous slide, the delays on the project aren't coming from risk, coming from variance. It might be change control. Just be somebody's been on leave for 2 weeks and they didn't know and they didn't paper. It could be from anything. having to cluster that variance analysis based around functional silos from the 1960s. Right? There's a risk management silo, there's a scheduling silo, there's a change control silo. That's the way we structured it 50, 60 years ago. Let's use data science, gives us a different clustering of that variance. So we won't have risk managers in the future, we'll have variance analysts. Different sort of job, not going around chasing people, right? 60 grand a year to say, build it in. I don't want that. You can do that with a workflow. I don't need it anymore. So the risk management profession, Institute of Risk Management, we talked to them, we told them APM, Risk Management 6, whatever we're saying, the profession's going to die unless you adapt. Right? You give all your job to a data scientist and say, oh, no, I don't want to do data science because I'm a risk manager. I'm just going to do risk management. I'm going to let the data science. What's left? What are you going to do? Yeah? You're going to do yourself out of a job. You're going to lose your house. You know, you're going to lose your career. What are you going to do? So we'll keep blogging about this, posting stuff on LinkedIn. Yeah, whatever, right. Yeah, it's not going to affect me. It will. It will. It's your livelihood. Frustrating. What we're also doing is creating this Project Brain, right? This is so cool, right? If you imagine, project delivery is a logical puzzle to be solved. Right? That puzzle said, how do we do scheduling? You do scheduling, so you know the order of stuff, and you can work out, you know, where your variance is going to be, etc. Nobody's gone through that and said, why do we do scheduling? We do scheduling because that's the way we've done it, that's the way the Bible tells us, P6 and put. Nobody's gone back and said, why do we do scheduling? Nobody's gone back and said, why do we do risk management? You don't do risk management to manage risk. You should be doing risk management to minimise the downside and maximise the upside. That's not just risk management. Loads of things all integrated together that enable you to do that. So if we can go back to these fundamentals of project delivery and start to decompose them one by one, we get all the problem statements that we're trying to answer. Right? It's a logical puzzle that applies to all of the community. It needs to be tailored to different instances. That's what we're trying to do. Right? So all these bits of the puzzle. You can understand the way these bits of the puzzle connect. Scheduling doesn't sit by itself. So the end plan stuff's great, but scheduling isn't a standalone activity. It links with compensation events, it links with variance, it links with change control, it links with logistics, loads of stuff all joined together. And what we don't understand at the moment is, does the data that I'm collecting today align with the problems that I'm trying to solve? Nobody's actually looked at that. Nobody. Anyway. Going to do it. We're doing it. So we've already done it for risk management. There's two. We've got carbon and climate resilience. Also going to do it on this health and safety and productivity. So we're going to start to break these problem statements down one and make that a community asset. We do data alignment assessment, make sure the data starts and all these problem statements. It does say, if it aligns, let's create a solution, takes all that data, gives you an answer out of it, gives you some insights. Then in 3 or 4 years' time, once the data's all aligned, where you guys come in, optimize. Joining data together, training machine learning models, all that sort of stuff. Where the clever stuff comes in, we need to go through this first stage of, but the wrong bloody data today. Right? It's the wrong data. We're not collecting the right stuff to be able to unlock the power of data during project delivery. This is going to help us to fix it. So, what next? If you want to be involved in shaping these visions, shaping these roadmaps, and shaping the challenges that goes into the hacks, the apprenticeship project, so every apprentice. So apprentice is such a bad word because it's got a stigma with it that it's a 16-year-old. So back in 2017, the government looked at plans from Germany, and Germany said, these tech colleges, right? People go and do a 18 and they finish it at 21. Keep talking up all the way through their life. The UK, do is you send you on a 2-day Prince course, days, and that will do. Right? It's not good enough. Yeah, it's not good enough. So what the government says is, because you're not sending people on training because they're too busy working, we're going to force you, train them up by taking a tax off you. It's called the project training. And they should drop the word project because it's going to stick. Training them. Like 0.5% of your paper just sits in an account training people. Private UK PLC productivity. But we're not spending it because everyone's too busy. Yeah? So we'll never become not productive where we need to be. This is all based around driving up UK productivity. This is about making project delivery completely different. If you want to be involved in the hacks and you want to get involved in upskilling and stuff like that, then have a chat with us and we'll fit you into the overall community. So we need people to understand this stuff. Do understand it, start to apply it, we'll start getting data volumes up, etc. So if you want to link in with any of the team tonight, there we are. There's our QR codes. Go and find us on LinkedIn. If you enjoyed it tonight, please pump it on LinkedIn as well. It's all about spreading the word, spreading the community. It's not about me. It's not about the guys here. It's about all of us. Change the world together. Us can do it. So please get involved. So if you want to get involved in the hack, that's on the 28th, 29th. 20 football fans. The evening of the 29th is the England-Wales World Cup match. You're watching that on the big screens at the Spurs Stadium. So even if you're not bothered about the hack, watch it on. So the challenges. Warwick, you know, would you like one through this for me?
Can do very.
Yes, please.
Thank you to be speaking today. Okay, so we have actually some of the ones here. Ed, would you write your one?
So if we think back to removing the monotony of project updates, that's one of those that I covered off earlier. The project performance, again, that's one I covered off earlier. The progress pathway tools. Yeah, that's somebody else's.
Yeah, somebody else's. That's a really interesting one about exploring tools and ideas around being able to say, hey, we know the process we want to do. Be sure we've got the time, we've got the resources to manage it. So how can we say this is the process, this is when the deadline is, timetable it for us and make sure we're hitting those deadlines. The Project Chatterbot is a really interesting one around the knowledge vision, about being able to take the information provided by the Project Chatter podcast. Say we've got all this discussion, all this conversation about what's new and relevant and current in the project profession. How can we search for the ideas here about things relevant to us? So there's a good number of challenges this time that are really about exploring what we call natural language and be able to say where do we find the right information within natural written data, not the sort of the data you're all imagining of dates and numbers, but in conversation and natural written language. The
next one is one that we've covered here as part of, which is James Challenge. More? We let's hope so.
We do. A good number of our challenges on this slides today, as they're still in the finishing touches.
Yes, this is the Clippy challenge.
Yeah. There's been a lot of discussion about this one. Everyone's very excited about this one, and I'm sure you've already gotten excited about this one yourselves. Being able to say, being able to bring all those structures and processes and systems from the PMO, being able to bring it together into a natural chatterbot, you take away everything that time-consuming side, helpline, drop-in center, endless amount of time it takes to disseminate information through an entire organization. And it is something that is sort of happening now in other industries and throughout the world as it's time to sort of have that resource and have that location where you can just ask a question and you know the right answer or given the right answer.
And this is that Lindsay from the House of PMO put it to the PMO. They said, this is what we get the rest of the stuff. Let's get this because this will help. God knows how. Here is that we get time in. Really great thing.
Not yet.
Anything else? Thank you, Warwick. Thank you, Alan, for that. So in terms of that, it's a not-for-profit event. So we have got steering groups. Members of the team are part of the steering group. If we raise too much money, which is so far, so if we raise too much money, what we'd like to do is to run an event with students and A-level people to get them involved, to give you you can start some of these things. That'd be cool. One for the benefit of all, it's about inspiring people. Now, if there's any vendors, anybody wants to put hand in the pocket and to contribute to this, please let me know. What we're trying to do, not quite landed it yet, but we might have a government construction board who's holding their board meeting at the Hack in a separate venue, and the country will walk through and see what it's all about and walk hands and stuff. So there's some big hitters here, the Major Projects Association board's in as well. So these are your advocates, folks. These are the people who understand this stuff, giving up the time to come to the Hack, interested in this stuff. Right. So if you're interested and you want to be part of it, please let me know, and we'll gladly get you involved. But it's about sort of chipping in for the taxi fare. So a big thank you to all of you for giving up your time tonight. We really do appreciate it. So the community's back on the road again, the banks back together. So we'll see you in January. So what's the date in January, Liam? 15th of January, something like that. We'll get something out pretty soon, right? I need to land the speaker for it. Need to get the venue sorted. Back here, might be the Microsoft Reactor a bit bigger, not quite sure yet. But a big thanks to Gleeds again for hosting us and for the beer and your food and stuff like that. And a big thank you to all of you. Thank you.